Welcome to episode 2 of Down to Earth, the name that Bulionog and Robonut recommended. It's really good, so we're sticking with it. Thank you for the suggestions. Go ahead and leave your comments down below for the next video, and let's go ahead and jump into the first comment from Mitch. What are your rarest and most expensive minifigures? So I actually have collected a few that I think are some of my most rarest. I do have the original version of Captain Rex, Phase 2. I have most of the minifigures from the Emperor's Palpatine's Arrest set, whatever that's called. I actually don't know. The Anakin and the Palpatine. But I also have Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, which is one of my favorite minifigures. And I have this Greedo, which is the original version. He has the old arm printing. Just a nice minifigure to have. As well as just some other ones, like I have the... It's opened, unfortunately, but I have the Chrome Stormtrooper, which I got when I was young. So those are just some of my most rare ones. I don't know if technically they're the most rare, but some of the most rare ones that I have. UFO Bricks asks, do you have any advice for someone who wants to start a LEGO MOC making YouTube channel? Thanks. So yes, honestly, just be yourself and show up consistently. Even if it's scrappy, it's better to show up scrappy than to not show up at all, if that makes sense. And it's good to try to be pretty consistent. Like, you don't have to be, posting every day or necessarily even every week. I like to try to post every week, if not 2 times a week. And then I'd also recommend on trying to focus on community, so including the people who are watching your videos however you can, respond to comments, interact with them. And people really like to feel like they're a part of something, and they'll be a lot more engaged if you do that. Cast Iron asks, would you consider doing Arnor MOCs? So I definitely consider it, but I will be honest, I didn't really know what that was until I Googled it, so for what that's worth. But if it's cool and if it's Middle-earth related, I definitely would consider it. Will Build Productions asks, how did you build your parts collection over time? Do you think it's best to buy parts for specific MOCs, part out sets, or just use Pick a Brick? So I have collected parts since I was really young. Pretty much all my money went towards Lego, and I didn't really spend it on anything else. And I didn't really ever have access to a Lego store. So that's kind of a new thing that I have now, which is really nice. If I had access to a Lego store growing up, then I would have been probably buying a lot more parts from the store. But I kind of had to just get sets and then part them out. Occasionally we'd get like a bulk lot from a garage sale or something, but that was not the most common. If I was to start off now, I would recommend going to like retired Lego stores like Bricks and Minifigs or things like that and sort through their bulk parts, because you'll be able to pull out specific parts that are useful for whatever kind of stuff you're building, which everyone builds something different and everyone needs different kinds of parts. So that's what I do to get specific parts for MOCs, and I find that to be pretty useful. I just think parting out sets, usually you'll end up with a lot of parts that you just don't need. So all that money you're spending towards the set, you might get some pieces that are useful, but the majority probably won't be. And then, of course, just getting whatever specific parts you need that you can't find anywhere else from Bricklink. Frame Bricks says, you should totally build a Rings of Power Linden MOC. Knowing your building style, you would make it look amazing. So it's not a question, but I love this idea. The yellow trees would be pretty cool, so I definitely will keep that in mind. I'm always looking for more Middle-earth related MOCs, especially ones that are beautiful landscapes, and that definitely fits all the boxes. Rick asks, what do you do outside of your Lego builds, school, work, etc.? So I pretty much work full-time when I'm not building. This is just my hobby that I enjoy doing on the side. But outside of work, I also enjoy watching shows with my wife and just spending time with her. So that pretty much fills up all my time, though. So it's either working on builds, just my normal day job, like work, or spending time with my wife. Currently, we are going through Hotel Hell, and all of the episodes are on YouTube, which is actually really nice. It's all free, but we're really enjoying going through that right now. Jojo asks, did you go through a Lego Dark Age? If yes, when and how long? So yeah, most of my high school and early 20s was definitely a Dark Age. I missed out on like a decade's worth of sets, and pretty much that whole time, I don't think I bought a single set. probably for about 10 years. I still kept all my stuff from when I was a kid and younger, so I'm glad I kept it all. But yeah, I just kind of had other things that I was focusing on during that time, and then I kind of came back to it like a year, maybe 2 years ago. Max asks, if you want to build something from the Rings of Power series, my suggestion would be to build Celebrimbor's blacksmith. The forge with the gold mithril, etc. would be a pretty cool but also challenging build. I really agree with this. That is probably the first thing that I would want to do. I actually have started trying to play with some ideas of how I could do that build. It is a little tricky. The elvish shapes are difficult, but I've played with that a little bit, and that's probably the first thing I would build if I do a Rings of Power MOC, which I probably will eventually. And I've already kind of started, but I agree. I appreciate the suggestion, and yeah, all the gold, like intricate parts would be definitely difficult, but it would look cool. Brick Country Crew says, I got Barad-dûr day one, and I still have the Fell Beast promo sealed. Now I would never sell it as I'm trying to get all the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings sets. But would you open the Fell Beast set or display it sealed in box? Love your content. Keep up the great work. Thank you. So when I got mine, I fully intended to open it. I knew it would be worth a lot, but to me, it's not really worth much to me in the box. Like if I have it sealed, what's the point of having it at all? It's kind of how I look at it. I know there's like different opinions and different views, and that's okay. But for me, especially since it's Lord of the Rings and that's my favorite theme, I knew even before I got it, I was going to be opening it and displaying it just because that is what I like to do with my Lego. If it's sitting in a box, it might as well be sold for the price that it's worth. Just my way of looking at it. King Rue asks, my question is, would you have liked the taller legs on Sauron figure we got in Barad-dûr, and what did you think about the softer plastic they used on the Sauron helmet and the Mouth of Sauron helmet? Good question. So I am actually on team normal legs. I don't think the long legs would have looked good. I understand he's supposed to be taller, but I just feel like he would have looked a little too slender, a little goofy with those tall legs. And I think the normal legs was the correct way to go. And as for the softer plastic, originally I was kind of against it, but I've come around to it. I actually think it makes sense because there are some sharp points on it. It could get broken pretty easily with all those little points. If it was hard plastic and it being the soft plastic, it's a lot less likely that it could get broken. So I actually think it was a smart way to go, even though originally I was maybe not as on board. Trey asks, will you ever build a Helm's Deep MOC? So I don't have any plans to, and I know a lot of people have already done really, really good, really cool Helm's Deep MOCs. So it kind of feels like, why would I do that if I can't really add anything new or bring anything new to the LEGO Lord of the Rings MOC space community? So I don't have any plans to. That being said, I plan to do a bunch of Lord of the Rings MOCs, and that's a prominent scene. But I tend to try to focus on scenes that a lot of people haven't done before, so it kind of brings something new, and scenes that the LEGO group hasn't even made sets of. So if you notice, like I did Hen and the Doors of Durin and some other things that they never made sets of. So that's kind of what I try to look for. But it's not out of the question. I suppose at some point in the future, maybe I'll do a Helm's Deep MOC. Brickmaster asks, what is your favorite Hobbit set and do you own Smaug? So I think my favorite Hobbit set is actually a cheap one. It's actually the Witch King Battle, I think it's called. It comes with 3 figures, the Galadriel, the Elrond, and the Witch King. 3 really good figures, and I think it was $10 or $11 when the set came out. So a very underrated set. If I could go back in time, I would buy a whole bunch of them because I just would love to have a bunch of those figures. My second favorite set is probably the Lonely Mountain set, which came with Smaug, which I do not have, unfortunately. I do not have Smaug. I really hope to sometime in the future, but he's super expensive, and also he's that dark red color, which is very brittle now, so I know he's fragile. That's kind of sad and disappointing because they're probably never going to make a Smaug like that again, but I hope to own it at some point. Bricking It with Andrew asks, what do you do for a living, and do you have a dog? So for a living, I'm a photographer, and no, I don't have a dog. Alex asks, any recommendations for a Rohan Camp MOC? I have ordered pieces and some minifigs. The Viking olive green figures make perfectly fine Rohirrim, but I am not sure how I will approach the interior. It will be small, 24 by 32 or so. So that sounds super cool. I've never made a MOC like that, but that sounds really cool. So I would come up with some tent designs that you really like and just have a few of those, and then maybe have some campfires and some like weapons racks around. But I think an important thing, since often MOCs are super flat, I think it's important to try to get some elevation. So get some cliffs, some rock work. It doesn't have to be crazy tall because it is kind of a flatlands, but just a little bit to add some interest. I think that would be really cool. And then also make sure you have some of their colors. So some of those gold flags, those dark green flags, I think those are kind of their colors. Make sure you have some of those because that will really kind of help signify what this is. Although you're right, the Viking torsos and those helmets would be perfect for this. So you're on the right track. Broken Mall asks, would you consider doing a habitat type build for each Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies? Would be interested to see what you could come up with considering the small space you're limited with. Keep up the great work. Thank you. So yeah, I actually would love to do something like this where I can kind of tell the whole story of the books, movies with small scenes. I think that would be pretty cool to do. I'm definitely down for that. So if you have any suggestions or how I would do that or scenes that I should do, leave them in the comments below because I would love to hear what you guys think about that. All right, and the last question, SJJJ asks, what games do you play if you do? So I don't really play any video games. I play more board games than video games. The only video game I used to play was Minecraft, and I would pretty much just design buildings and stuff, kind of like I do in LEGO. But that's really the only video game I have played much. So that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you to everyone who left comments. Go ahead and leave your questions for the next video in the comments below. I'll make sure to read those. Go ahead and like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.